Hello and welcome back to Academic Scope. Today we're going to cover topic 2.3, supply, in GCSE economics. This is one of the most common topics that come up in exams, along with demand, so you want to revise this very well. This is what the specification requires us to know. Explain what is meant by supply. Draw and explain a supply curve using data, including individual and market supply. Draw shifts of and movements along the supply curve. Analyze the causes and consequences of shifts and movements along the supply curve for both consumers and producers. Explain price elasticity of supply. Draw supply curves of different elasticity. And finally, evaluate the importance of price elasticity of supply for consumers and producers. The specification points are very similar to the ones in demand, and it has two types of 6 markers they can ask you. These are some important definitions that I'd recommend you memorize. Supply is the ability of firms to produce goods and services at each price in a given time period. The law of supply. For most products, the quantity supplied varies directly with the price of the product. Individual supply is the supply of a good or service by an individual producer. And market supply is the total supply of a good or service as a result of adding together all individual producers' supply. The supply curve. The supply curve slopes upwards, in contrast to the demand curve which slopes downwards. This is because of a few reasons that you must know because it's a very common 2-marker. Higher profits are likely to be earned by existing firms if they supply more due to higher prices. Production costs are likely to rise as output expands, so a higher price is needed to cover these extra costs. And new firms may be attracted to the market because of the higher prices, which means they can cover higher costs. A movement and shift is similar to the shifts and movements in demand. A movement in the supply curve is when the price changes, leading to a movement up or an expansion, or down or a contraction on the existing supply curve. A shift of a supply curve is a complete movement of the existing supply curve, either outward or inward, and you can see that in the bottom right. Again, shifts in supply can only be caused by non-price factors, whereas movements in supply are caused only by changes in price. Examples of factors that can cause a shift are changes in costs of production, taxes and subsidies, technological advancements, an increase in the number of producers, government regulation, or changes in climate. Below are a few factors that could be changed due to a change in supply. Economies of scale. The ability of a firm to produce more at every price should lead to a fall in the average costs and the gaining of greater economies of scale. This leads to greater profit and or lower prices for consumers. Efficiency. Being able to produce more with the same resources leads to greater efficiency and increased productivity. Sales. Being able to supply more at a lower price may lead to greater sales and more revenue. Exports. All of the above would make a firm more internationally competitive, which increases its ability to export and increases its revenue. Monopoly. If a firm becomes more competitive than its rivals, then it may be able to drive them out of the market, leading to the establishment of a monopoly. All of these can be used in the Analyze 6 marker mentioned in the specification, but it depends on the question and the case study you're given. And if you want to know more about that, check the link in the description for how to answer these types of questions using the case study. Just a little tip. OCR economics will give you at least 3 out of 6 marks if you draw the diagram correctly and fully describe the diagram. The rest of the marks are for your chain of reasoning and using application from the case study. Price elasticity of supply. Price elasticity of supply is similar to price elasticity of demand. It is the responsiveness of quantity supplied to a change in the price of the product. Elastic supply is when the percentage change in quantity supplied is greater than the percentage change in price. Inelastic supply is when the percentage change in quantity supplied is less than the percentage change in price, and below are the different diagrams. You calculate price elasticity of supply by dividing the percentage change in quantity supplied by the percentage change in price. You can see the formula there. A perfectly inelastic supply is 0. A unitary price elastic supply is 1, and a perfectly elastic supply is infinity. Note that these quantities are always positive because the supply curve slopes upwards. Factors that affect PES can be useful in some 6 markers. This is the level of spare capacity, stock levels, time under consideration, technology, and the skill level of the workforce. Now, this is one of the most common 6 markers, evaluating the importance of PES for firms and consumers. Let's start with firms. PES is important to firms because they prefer an elastic supply, so they can easily respond to changes in price. A more elastic supply also allows firms to offer consumers more flexibility, such as a wider range of products. They can trial different products and increase the output of successful ones and reduce that of unsuccessful ones, which allows them to maximize revenue, thus profit. An inelastic supply means they can't easily respond to price, so they can't roll out new products very quickly. Very inelastic supply also means that price depends almost entirely on demand, leading to a potential fall in revenue and thus profit, which firms don't want. You can see this by drawing a diagram of a unitary price elasticity of demand and an inelastic supply. If the company has an elastic PES, it will rarely have any empty shelves or be out of stock. Therefore, the consumers will perceive the company as reliable and be more likely to shop there, which increases revenue, thus profit. An inelastic supply can lead to delays and shortages, leading to a poor reputation with consumers, leading to falling revenue. To evaluate that, you can say PES may be difficult to calculate, it may change rapidly. In the long run, PES will be more elastic, so a firm with a very long-term perspective will not find an inelastic PES extremely important at the beginning. In addition to this, customers might only care about price, they might not really care whether the shop is reliable, and there might be no repeat buyers, so it doesn't matter if it has a strong reputation. For example, a tourist shop, where you will likely never go again. And lastly, evaluating importance of PES, but now for consumers. If the supply is inelastic, they will face a large price increase if they want to buy more. It can be difficult to get any of the product if the supply is very inelastic. If prices don't rise fast enough, shortages can occur. If the company has an elastic PES, it will rarely have any empty shelves or be out of stock. This means consumers will perceive it as reliable and know to go there instead of other shops. If consumers know a company has an inelastic PES, they know they should look out for substitutes early in advance of price rises so they can still consume the good or service. If consumers can delay their purchase, they can take an advantage of a more elastic PES in the long run. Remember, we said PES will become more elastic in the long run. Therefore, if they want to buy a large amount of something, if they can delay their purchase, they won't face a large price increase. And consumers can stockpile goods with an inelastic PES. And lastly, to evaluate these statements, there may not be any substitutes. Delaying the purchase may only be possible with some goods. You can't stockpile goods that perish, and you can't delay purchases which are essential. PES can be very difficult to calculate. Consumers may not want more of a product, and their demand can be inelastic. The consumer might have a very high income and not care about price rises, and PES may change rapidly. Remember that in an Evaluate 6 marker, the evaluation is actually the most important part. Even though the original chain of reasoning is necessary, you get more marks from evaluating well, so don't cut slack on that part. And remember to write the final overall paragraph where you give your final judgment. Thank you for watching Academic Scope, and make sure to come in next time where we go on to 2.4. Thank you for watching.